Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Brian Campbell. I want to personally welcome you to this class on 506 Integration of Psychology and Theology. I happen to be a believer in the integration. I'm going to be telling you about that. I've been in private practice doing Christian counseling for over 20 years. I first was a professor at Nova University in Fort Lauderdale for 10 years, and I'll be telling you about that. And I'm going to talk to you about my experiences and how they led up to the Christian counseling and the integration of those as by way of background to this course. So I went to undergraduate school at Grove City College in Grove City, Pennsylvania, and after finishing my degree in psychology, I decided to go back to my home country, at least where my father was, and that is Scotland. So I went to the University of St. Andrews to do my doctorate in psychology. The doctorate there was primarily experimental, and that was experimental clinical psychology. I did research with handicapped people and various other populations. I was sponsored by the Scottish Home and Health Department, so I had a full scholarship for all those years, so that was certainly nice. And I did a lot of research studies. I actually ended up staying there 6 years, which is a long time. During that time, as I said, I was mainly mentored. We did not have courses, we did not have classes, we did not take any tests. Yes, no courses, no classes, and no tests. Can you believe that? I was taught by a mentor. I sat down with them on a weekly basis, and we planned research and did research, and I really learned how to learn in Scotland. When I came back to the United States and I was a professor in clinical psychology, all I could think of was my students going, feed me, is that on the test? Feed me, is that on the test? And it was a little bit immature compared to where I had come from. So anyway, I met there and trained under a guy named Bob Grieve, and I learned how to think like Bob did. I learned how to think experimentally, I learned how to think scientifically. So my first education was scientific. Then I came back to the United States and I did a pre-doctoral internship at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Well, my internship was all psychodynamically oriented. It was Freudian psychoanalysis. So I went from experimental to psychology to Freudian psychoanalysis. Boy, what a transition that was. So I did that for a year. Then I went back to Scotland for a year and finished up. Then I did a postdoctoral fellowship. Now my postdoctoral fellowship was in a Center for Reproductive Medicine and Child Neurology. It was associated with Brown University. But I mainly worked with mentally retarded and handicapped people at that point in time, and I learned radical behaviorism. Can you believe it? I went from experimental to psychoanalysis to radical behaviorism. Wow, what a transition. Then I went back and I started my career as a professor of clinical psychology at Nova University, where I taught doctoral level classes in PhD and PsyD classes, and I also taught some master's level classes there too. And so after about 10 years of that, I decided to move on. But before I did, one day, well, shortly after I arrived at Nova, I started becoming interested in cognitive therapy. So I had moved from experimental to psychoanalysis to cognitive therapy, or to radical behaviorism, and then finally to cognitive therapy. And I have a long story of how I got there, but anyway, I started studying thinking and started studying behavior, and I realized that was a very, very important treatment technique for me to learn. As I was learning that, and that has to do with like helping people change their thinking to help them change their behavior, and etc. I had a student who was interested in studying how the Bible could be used in relationship to cognitive therapy. Well, this was exciting to me, and I thought, wow, that's really what I'd like to do. So we started researching that, and I started to find out that the Bible is the best mental health textbook ever written. It's the best basis for cognitive therapy ever written, and the information is incredible. So I was armed with a number of tools when I went out into private practice. I decided to leave the university. And I had especially good skills at behavior therapy. I'd given up psychoanalysis. I don't use that at all. And I don't do too many experiments anymore. I don't do research anymore. But I had behavior modification skills, which were important, and I had cognitive therapy skills, which were important, and I had my faith, which was extremely important. And I put all that together and developed what I call Christian cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy is obviously the most efficacious treatment for almost any type of disorder out there. So I decided that combining this with the Bible and God, when the advice in the Bible would be the best way to approach cognitive therapy. This was the backdrop from which everything else is rationalized from the Bible. So I really felt that I had put everything together. The behavior therapy, behavior modification is important because I know how to help people change their behavior. As I looked into the Bible, I saw that God was very much concerned about how we think and how we behave. And he tells us how we should think and how we should behave. Now I had tools that would help me to help people get their thinking in line with God's perspective. All right, so what I do, and the connection became beliefs. I believe that the word belief and a person's beliefs are the important thing that drives most psychopathology. If you believe that you're dumb or stupid, then you'll probably think that way and you'll behave that way. And I've put this all together in a PowerPoint presentation that I hope everyone will look at before you start your class, because once you get your class started here, you're going to be running so fast you're not going to be able to look at it very much. If you go to my internet site, counseling4christians.com, I have in there a videotape. If you go to Counseling Resources and then look down there, you'll see a PowerPoint presentation called Take Captive Every Thought. Please, please look at that PowerPoint presentation. I really hope that you will look at it, because I think it'll be the basis for therapy for the rest of your life if you look at that. So while I was out in private practice, I decided to develop some tools that would help me with my Christian counseling. So I wrote 3 Christian counseling books, which I put on the blackboard, but also I will describe to you later on. They basically consist of scriptures, and I use scriptures a lot in counseling. I also use behavior modification techniques. I also use cognitive behavior therapy and Christian cognitive behavior therapy, especially if the person is a Christian who comes in. So I have a lot of tools in my arsenal. I have no qualms at looking at it all as biblical. I think the body, mind, and spirit are all God's domain. So I have no problem with integrating those and utilizing treatments that incorporate all of those skills into the same package. So I hope to be telling you and teaching you a little bit about that. I'm also going to send you somewhat of a book that I'm writing called The Process of Christian Counseling, and in there I described how some of the things I just described to you now, and I want you to have a look at that, and I'll send that out early too. I will also send out my worldview, so that you can see my worldview. I'm going to be sending you that. So if you look at my worldview and the internet site and some of the resources on Christian counseling that I have on my internet site, that will be a very important thing as we get started here. I want you to understand that all of these things are actually not that difficult. You're going to be reading some very difficult material. It's epistemological, it's philosophical, some of it, and it's reading that most of you will never have really tried to grasp before. But after doing all that, I want you to know that there is a solution to all that, and it's pretty simple, this integration. And I'm hoping that I will be able to take the complexity out of this and show you a simple way that you can integrate psychology and theology. God bless.